What happens when we die? Real stories from people who have crossed over and returned. One question that we all ask is, what happens after death? There are those who believe that we will either go to heaven or hell, and there are those who believe that there is nothing after death. According to a survey, it was found that 55% of people are certain that there is an afterlife, 37 people are not sure, and the remaining 8% are convinced that there is nothing like an afterlife. However, there are some people who have crossed over and returned, and they have given their own versions of what happens after death. What do you see after death? It is a fact that a lot of people have claimed to see visions or even have out-of-body experiences. And most of these experiences happen when they have a near-death experience, such as their heart stopping. But what people see does not really matter whether or not you believe in the afterlife. And even though skeptics brush it off, researchers have realized that most near-death experiences tend to have common themes. They are either feelings of leaving or returning to their bodies. And in some cases, there is a sense of peace, bright lights, and encounters with spirits or people. Right now, even though there is a medical treatment that is good enough, there is a difference between clinical death, which means there is no breath or pulse but the patient could still be resuscitated, and biological death, which means the person is actually dead. Even cynics get chills when they hear about these otherworldly visions from people who are clinically dead or close to death. The most glorious feeling. In 1994, an orthopedic surgeon, Tony Cicoria, was going on a lake house trip. Along the way, he needed to make a call from a payphone. He did, and after a short conversation, he was about to hang up. With the phone still in his hand, he saw a blue flash coming out. He had not realized that there was a lightning storm coming. All of a sudden, he felt his body flying backward and then suddenly forward. This left him momentarily confused. When he turned around, he saw his body lying on the ground, and the first thought that came to mind was that he was dead. There was neither grief nor ecstasy, but if he was looking at his own body and in no pain, what else could this be? He floated there as a woman started CPR, and he decided to move on. He floated up the stairs only to see his kids getting their faces painted. At this point, he realized that they were okay. As he narrated his story to the New Yorker, he said, "Then I was surrounded by a bluish-white light, an enormous feeling of well-being and peace. The highest and lowest points of my life raced before me. I had the perception of accelerating, being drawn up. There was speed and direction. Then, as I was saying to myself, this is the most glorious feeling I have ever had. Slam! I was back." Nothing but love. Anita Morjani had been fighting lymphatic cancer for 4 years, but in 2006, she slipped into a coma. The doctors were very sure that this was the end, but they failed to realize that this was a near-death state and she still had consciousness. As she explained, she felt like she was floating above her body with 360-degree peripheral vision of the entire hospital room and beyond. She did not see her late father, but she claims that she felt his presence. She claims that he had a message for her. She said, "He said that I've gone as far as I can, and if I go any further, I won't be able to turn back. But I felt I didn't want to turn back because it was beautiful. It was just incredible. Because for the first time, all the pain had gone. All the discomfort had gone. All the fear was gone. I just felt so incredible, and I felt as though I was enveloped in this feeling of just love, unconditional love." 30 hours after being in a coma, Morjani fell back into consciousness, and 2 days after this experience, all her organs started to regain function, and the tumors started shrinking, all at once. The Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, NDERF, collects stories from people who have been to the other side. There was a 4-year-old girl who was in the hospital with a high-grade fever. She was having hallucinations, vomiting, and a fever when she suddenly felt her toes reach the foot of her bed. She opened her eyes to see herself lying on a gurney before her non-body started to rise up and leave the building. She claimed that she began browsing through time. She later said that she detailed things that occurred before she could even talk. According to her explanation, she kept going up, and the higher she went, the more at peace she felt. She said there were no questions or unknowns. Time wrapped in on itself. There was no past, present, or future as we see it here. Everything happened now and all at one time. I felt no fears or worries. I began drifting towards a beautiful light, and I wanted to touch it. Suddenly, there was a pop. I felt like I was attached to a cord when someone grabbed it and jerked me down. Nothing but a white light. When Jane Seymour was shooting the 1988 film Onassis, she went into anaphylactic shock. However, instead of her bronchitis antibiotics being injected into her muscle, they were injected into a vein. As she explained her story in 2016, she said, "I had the vision of seeing a white light and looking down and seeing myself in this bedroom with a nurse frantically trying to save my life and jabbing injections in me, and I'm calmly watching this whole thing." She would later explain how the whole experience changed her, saying, "I remember looking down at this body that was mine, realizing I wasn't in it, and I totally grasped the concept that your body is really a vehicle. You need to service it like a car." Scared. Lori was 19 years old when she was swept into rapids while on a rafting trip. Eventually, due to the strong currents, she was trapped beneath the surface due to the strong currents. While here, she would feel her lungs fill with water, and this was the moment she knew that she was going to die. All of a sudden, everything was black, then white, as though she were passing through a tunnel. She explained, "Looking around me, I could see a room that appeared to be formed from pure white clouds, yet wasn't solid." She went on to explain that there were 3 beings in this room, but they seemed to be made of shimmering crystal. She said light shone through them like a glass prism, forming a rainbow. One of them was larger than the other 2, but they all spoke to her. She said, "I was afraid of them, and they seemed to realize this. Instantly, they transformed into what I recognized as angels. They did not have bird wings, they had fibers like fiber optic cables that were shaped like wings, and pure light shone through the fibers, forming colors in all shades. When they spoke, their messages were sent telepathically." Lori claims that the angels went ahead to show her a golden field with beautiful music, with a tree and a lake nearby. Eventually, she was rescued by a kayaking rescuer. I saw Jesus. When Zach Clements was 17 years old, he collapsed in the middle of his Christian high school gym class. His heart had stopped for a good 20 minutes as the doctors were trying to bring him back to life. Clements, however, tells a different story of what happened. Clements says that he caught a glimpse of heaven. He said, "I saw this line of white angels. In the middle was the prettiest of them all, and I didn't know who it was at first until he got closer to me. And then I realized, that's Jesus." He claims that he put his hand on his shoulder and told him that he was going to be all right. There are people who claim that the teen's story is just to fool them, but it is very odd that he was resuscitated after 20 minutes without any lasting brain damage. This has got to be a medical miracle. And with that, our video comes to an end. If you know of other stories like these, feel free to share them with us in the comments section below. Also, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more intriguing stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.